Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of the video series on using Edsby to engage in group learning conversations. At the end of the first video, we were talking about from within a student view what it would look like in a content discussion depending on what the teacher's class permissions were set up as far as the students. So for example, using my fictitious student, Mitch Chambers, as long as the classroom teacher has opened up the class settings to allow students to contribute content, then that means that Mitch Chambers can come in here in this post right now, a discussion created in content, and can start to submit a post. If the class settings are open, that means that every other student in the class will not only see Mitch's post, but they will be able to interact and start to respond to one another as well. If the class settings are closed, and meaning it is set to students can open the class but cannot contribute, then each student can still see the discussion. They will be able to contribute their own conversation, but they can't go and respond to one another. So that is the difference between the two. So let me just switch back over to my teacher view. Jonathan Baxter is the classroom teacher. And let me go into the content, open up the voting should be mandatory. Just something else I wanted to show you about a couple of features up here at the top. As the classroom teacher, not only can you view the discussion taking place, but you can also go into edit mode. You can start to edit any of the content. You can take a look at the history, which is really neat because what that allows you to do is see who has interacted with the content, every single individual who has opened it, and it gives you the timeline of when they have accessed that content as well. There's also a progress tab. Unlike the homeroom feed, which we had talked about in part 1 of the video, if you are looking to track, as a classroom teacher, if you want to track which of your students are accessing the feed and actually engaging in content, contributing to a discussion, you have to do that as a manual process, go in and track each and every individual student. Whereas if you are using a content discussion, it does it for you right within Edsby. So I can take a look at my class list in my progress tab. I can see the number of actions that each student has had, whether they have opened it, and whether they have completed the actual discussion. Now the completed column where the check marks are, that's based on the class setup again. So let me come back over here to my drop down, go back into my class setup. Earlier in part 1 we had talked about the student class option settings and the parent option settings as well, but underneath mark content complete, that's related to the content builder. If it is set to automatic, that means that every time a student goes into a discussion, it will automatically mark it as being completed because it's recognizing that they have entered that discussion. If I switch it to manual, what that means is that the student themselves, once they go into the discussion and they contribute, that means that they have the ability to check a box and they manually check it off as being completed. So again, just a little simple way for a teacher to be able to track progress within a discussion. So I'm going to go back out of that, and just to wrap up part 2 of the video, something that I had forgotten to mention during part 1, but I would like to get into it. So let me just jump back into the class feed, showing you a feature here that's important to show you. If I take a look at the class feed, as soon as I hover over a student response, you can see that they have the ability to like a post, reply. As a teacher, I can report it inappropriate, but I can also add it to the evidence. So this is what I forgot to mention in part 1. If there is a student response that I'm looking at and I'm thinking that is showing evidence of a student's learning, whether it meets a curriculum expectation or it's just something that I'm looking to add to their evidence, I can click this right now. So example for Mitch, I can click Add to Evidence. It opens up a new evidence window. Because it's a line of dialogue, it's a contribution that Mitch has made, it's Mitch's own words, so it's automatically written in as a piece of conversational evidence. I can now go in here and type my own observation based on what Mitch has said. I can come down here to the bottom and I can click Save, and it will automatically go to my evidence section. I can also click the share box here and it becomes a learning story where all of a sudden Mitch and Mitch's parent have access to this as well. So that's just something that I forgot to mention in part 1 and thought it was important to mention here. So there you have it, part 1 and part 2 completed using Edsby to engage in group learning conversations.